Welcome to the Atomic Impact Podcast. I am your host, Jason Osborn. And on this podcast, we interview successful business owners for them to share atomic, impactful lessons they've learned and share them with us as well. As always, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods that everybody hates. We use this method to book 26 qualified leads and sales calls in 10 days without any ad spend, outreach, or endless social media posting. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn, and that will be in the show notes below. Today's guest is David Stollman. He's the owner of Evergreen Speakers, and we'll get into a little bit more about what he does. But if you are a speaker, then he's a great person to know because they can help manage, get you speaking gigs around the U.S., which is absolutely phenomenal. So welcome to the show, David. I want to start off with asking you a question that I always love starting off with. And the question is this. If you were to somehow be able to go back in time to when you started your business, what's the number one biggest piece of advice that you would give your younger self just starting off in your business?
Well, I feel like I got a cheat code because someone did this, and I have been asked before, what are some of the keys to whatever success I've been able to find? And the truth is, I keep coming back to advice that I was given that I was thankfully smart enough to listen to, which is to clarify what your company's values are, make them clear, make them public, and make yourself structured so that you can be held to account for them. So wear your values on your sleeve, admit to
Mm.
what they are, and even when you fail to live up to them completely, but let them be a North Star that both you and others know so they can interact with you or align with you or maybe even avoid you based on what you say you're about.
Yeah, that's awesome. When people are creating values, because I think in some ways people they know it theoretically that they need to do that. And just starting off in business, they may not know exactly where they want to go with things. Or even if they've been in business for a long time and they're realizing that they need to align where they're going, what are some tips that will just help people to not just go through the same rigmarole of, okay, here's our values, blah, blah, but it doesn't actually drive what they're doing and keeping them accountable.
Well, I think um, if it's not something you use regularly, it's not really one of your values. And it may sound like it would be wonderful if it were, but if you're
Mm,
not willing to, when pushed to a tough decision, use that as how you make your decision, it really it may be aspirational, but not necessarily a core value. And I go back to a book that makes me feel old saying it, but this idea built to last, that book that talked about it was really a case study in values integration with a business. And
mm,
one of my company's values is that we put our relationship with our customers first. And as a speakers agency, there can be a challenge between our speaker and the client that we're serving. That sometimes there's a misunderstanding or there's a problem, and we have to be, as the agency, in the middle of mediating it. And, in baseball, for those that are in the US or at least follow it, the tie goes to the runner. And that's an understood rule. And, our making clear that we put our relationship with our customer first helps in navigating both our relationship with them and with our speaker, because we have a limited roster and we keep long-term relationships with these people and they know where we stand in how we do what we do. And if we
yeah.
didn't have that as a clear value, well, I think that would degrade the relationship with the speaker, expecting that we're going to handle things a certain way. And so making it
Mm,
clear prevents problems. And if we didn't have that and didn't hold ourselves to that, for example, then it would be an aspiration and not a value. I'm not sure
yeah, I think
that's a clear direction that helps someone starting out, but it's kind of like throw away the things that you wouldn't stand 10 toes in ground, holding firm to, the things you're willing to bend on. Maybe those are aspirations and that's okay, but the core values you're willing to be held to, um, I think they emerge a little more clearly.
yeah, no, I think it's great advice that you've given there, and really clear the way you laid that out and structured it as well. When you look at some of the bigger challenges that speakers have, kind of either breaking in or maybe established speakers, what are some of the challenges that you see people only trip over? And what are some tips to kind of deal with that and overcome those?
But I think for speakers and for aspiring speakers, and we have a clear niche in the what we do and how we do it. And so I
Mm,
put that out there as a caveat that this is not an answer for all. And there are many different ways to be a speaker and be successful and all of that. And I just look at our method as what I feel comfortable speaking to.
yeah.
And we really are about serving the client. It's one of the reasons we try to avoid famous people, because it's either all about making sure that the people in the room leave better than when they walked in or not. Um,
Mm,
and there are many speakers that have amazing stories, and they climbed Mount Everest on one leg against all the odds, or whatever their story is. And they make the stage time about them
mm,
as opposed to about the audience. And
yeah.
so I think what we try to do, and the way that we do business, and the way that our speakers are serving, is that it's either all about the audience or it's not at all. And the impact of your story is in its unpack for the audience, and it's not about you, and it's not about whether it's stage therapy, getting up there and expressing all the challenges, and it's not about you. It's about how the audience leaves better. And that's kind of our
Mm,
brand. It's the way that we do business. It's the way that our speakers operate. It's a consistency that we try to keep with our agency and our speakers all the way through. And so I'd say for someone either starting out, or for someone that's established, that's looking at um, growing, I think the market itself is for a lot of reasons niching, that people are going to be able to shop for a speaker in a way that they shop for many other products. I want
mm,
this very specific, unique person on stage delivering on this particular very niche topic. And with a lot of tools that exist, are more likely to find that. But I think for the speakers that are out there, being comfortable with that niching and comfortable with them serving as opposed to it being about them, that it's a simple set of ideas that are hard to implement, but a good place to start thinking about.
yeah. No, I think that's great. So what I'm hearing you say is I'll kind of paraphrase it. And I love if there's more clarity on it, feel free to clarify it. But when you're speaking, whether you're starting off or even you're established, even though yes, you are the keynote, you're speaking from stage, and you're the focal point because you are the speaker, it's not actually about you. You're the one that's there to deliver the information and value to the actual people you're speaking to. So even though you might have a great story, it's about integrating the story about how that can resonate with the audience and help them achieve whatever the topic of the conversation
Yeah.
is. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, there are three real audiences, but the end result is that they're paying for an impact. They're paying
Mm-hmm.
for, whatever delta you're bringing, whatever change in attitudes, in behavior, in results, whatever change they're paying for based on your content. They're paying for that change, not for you. They want the end result. And so if you're not all in focused on that change being delivered, then any one of those, really the three audiences, the person that is sitting in the room listening, the person that arranges those chairs to get those people sitting there, and the person that writes the check, that all three of those need to be served in how you're doing and the what you are doing as a speaker. So it's
Yeah.
got to be about them. And if you don't serve them, another speaker will.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. I love that. I'm very much about that whole kind of servant-hearted way that you work with clients and stuff. And that's fantastic, man. I love that. I love that. If you look at the next 2 to 3 years, you mentioned something around maybe some of the ways that speaker purchasing, if you look at it from that way, people looking at who they pay to bring speakers in. What do you see with your company, the direction you're going? Like, what are your goals over the next few years?
Um, for us, it's always about, since we typically, as I said, especially in the States, we avoid famous people. I never want an audience sitting there waiting, and have a speaker that was called to be on television because they're some famous person or an expert or on a morning show. Like we typically avoid that.
Yeah.
So for us, it's customer acquisition. Once a company works with us, we do a lot with corporate, nonprofit, and military. Our sister company works in the higher education space in North America.
Mm.
And once a company works with us, they typically come back.
Yeah.
It's ease of use. We help them buy their time back by making everything easy. Our speakers are low maintenance. We do everything all inclusive. So the whole point is that they can go and do their primary job, which very rarely is putting a speaker on a stage.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's always, we're looking at customer acquisition. How do we start relationships and begin to serve new people, so that we can continue to serve them over time? I
Yeah.
think the industry itself is changing, as you allude to, how people shop for a speaker. Um,
Yeah.
Everybody is talking about AI in this mythical way, but I think the way that search is changing matters. A
Mm.
lot of speakers used to be able to game the system with SEO and find some keywords and highlight them in text in ways that are becoming quickly less relevant. And that search is going to depend upon depth of knowledge and expertise. And picture if your content is, it's not just a backlink to somebody else where there's a level of expertise to it, but there's a depth to what you're writing, what you have in terms of video. If there's a depth to it that is reinforced by other, in these large learning models that is learned elsewhere, that's replicated, and you then become more expert. And
Mm.
what that will do is reward you in search. So if you are one of 5 people who really know this one terribly niche topic better than anybody, and you're not writing deeply about it, but more just broadly and saying, "Hey, I'm the expert," then you're going to be found less than those 4 other people. But if you
Mm.
are getting deep into the weeds and you are showing your expertise with not just breadth of understanding, but depth of understanding, doing that is going to be rewarded, I believe, because when people are searching, that's what they're looking for. And as these new tools become more successful at finding and measuring expertise compared to fake expertise, I think those speakers that lean into that are going to be rewarded.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I love that. So making sure that you're going deep into that content, not just broad, and highlighting your expertise around that is a big difference when people make a purchasing decision. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Love that. Well,
Inch deep,
David,
inch wide, mile deep is where we're headed.
yeah, yeah, I agree, man. Absolutely. There's definitely a thing around trust. I think with AI right now, people are lacking that, and I think as you said, the deeper you can go, it just helps people know, okay, like this is trust is being built, which is really, really important. So that's amazing, Dave. That's amazing. Well, listen, if people want to find out more about what you do or get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Evergreenspeakers.com. And whether, if we do international programs, more Zoom than anything else. Most of our speakers are traveling across North America. Because, again, I mentioned we have all-inclusive pricing and we have to bump up when we're going across an ocean. But the reality is we do a lot of internet-based programming as well in support of clients in other places. And
Nice.
love to be of service if we can be.
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, David. And as a reminder, the show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods that everybody hates. And find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn and have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborne, and the link will be in the show notes below.